Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by rise.How family of companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOW or visit billhow.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
For the first time in more than a decade, there will be a new sheriff in San Diego County, and for the first time in history, it will be a woman. Good evening, I'm Maya Trabulsi, and today Sheriff-elect Kelly Martinez appointed a new undersheriff and assistant sheriff following the concession of her opponent, John Hemmerling. When she was sworn in early next year, Martinez will face many challenges, including what to do about a jail system with the worst record of in-custody deaths in California. Here's KPBS reporter John Carroll.
No more deaths! No more deaths!
They've become familiar to KPBS viewers and listeners. Representatives of the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, along with other civil justice organizations, protesting the seemingly never-ending deaths in jails run by the San Diego County Sheriff's Department.
We're cautiously optimistic.
The North County Equity and Justice Coalition's Yusef Miller says they're ready to work with Kelly Martinez after she becomes sheriff. The question for him is, how willing will she be to work with them?
Her ability to do what we need to save lives in custody is also tempered with needing to work with her to make sure that these reforms are implemented.
The reforms Miller is referring to came in a state audit earlier this year that laid out a number of changes to how the jail system should be run. But he says Martinez needs to go beyond that.
We have to make changes in personnel. We have to make changes in culture.
In the communities that we work with, the sheriff's department ends up being a big part of our daily lives.
Lillian Serrano is the co-director of Universidad Popular. The group primarily works with immigrants in the North County. She shares the concerns about the high number of in-custody deaths, but she wants to see Martinez make other changes as well.
There is a lot of work that still needs to be done to be able to foster and really create a trust between the immigrant community and the sheriff's department.
We requested an interview with Kelly Martinez, but were told she was unavailable. For now, like Miller, Serrano is cautiously optimistic, taking a wait-and-see attitude. But it won't be long before the rubber hits the road in the new Martinez administration. Miller says his group is expecting to meet with her in the near future. He says he'll share the outcome of that meeting with us, a moment when those calling for change will get a better idea of whether today's cautious optimism is justified. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The midterm elections provided a real-world lesson for high schoolers in the North County. Coming up, what they learned in class and by voting for the first time. A federal judge is siding with the ACLU in its challenge to America's asylum policy. The judge is calling Title 42 unlawful. The CDC issued the rule at the start of the pandemic. President Biden kept it in place. Title 42 has forced 1 million migrants who have crossed the U.S.-Mexico border to be expelled. In the past, those migrants would likely be allowed to stay in the U.S. The graduate student strike at the University of California system enters its second day with some progress, but union leaders say they're holding on for better wages and working conditions. The strike is affecting classes, but KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen finds students by and large are supporting their TAs.
Your TAs and grad student researchers, postdocs are all on strike.
Even though Zach Goldberg is on strike, he is still teaching.
So we can't teach you guys effectively, right? We can't provide the instruction you guys deserve if we are always stressed about our living situation.
This time, it's a lesson on labor conditions of graduate student assistants on UC campuses.
We're on strike, researchers and TAs for better wages and working conditions. What I tell students is that my working conditions are their learning conditions. I'm teaching a biology lab class this quarter, right? This is a world-class university, or at least, that's what they say, and yet they don't pay us world-class wages, right? We're not able to provide the quality of instruction that our students deserve.
When students come to this world-class university, they expect a world-class education from world-class teachers, but many were surprised at how little those teachers were getting paid.
I was actually exceptionally surprised. When I saw the flyer in my elevator, how much they were asking is like less than I thought they were already being paid.
You guys do the absolute most for so little.
That's the reaction from many students on campus.
I was really surprised, but of course hearing them complain for such a long time, I guess I didn't really know the extent of everything that they were dealing with.
Negotiations are continuing, but the UC is floating the idea of mediation. Union leaders, however, are opposed to that idea. They say they want to continue to bargain in good faith.
Shut it down!
Alexander Wen, KPBS News.
Polystyrene, best known as styrofoam, is on its way out of San Diego. Today, the City Council once again voted to ban the product. The City Council tried a similar move in 2019, but it was tied up in courts. Part of the settlement involves an environmental review that was presented ahead of today's vote. Imperial Beach imposed a similar ban a few years ago. The co-owner of the Thai restaurant says it's an added cost, and he's working longer hours as a result.
We've been here long. We want to keep a customer here, and well, it's hard to increase the price.
San Diego's ban on foam-to-go boxes, utensils, toys, and other items will begin on April 1st. Smaller companies that make less than $500,000 per year will get a one-year grace period. Thousands of San Diegans depend heavily on public assistance money to get by day after day. But what happens when that money is stolen? More and more people have been victimized in recent months, and KPBS's Kitty Alvarado spoke to an advocate working hard to recover their money as soon as possible.
It's been a struggle for Kiki Turner since she lost her job in May. She's a single mom of two, but she's been getting by with temp work as a dental hygienist and public assistance.
So at that time, I was paying my rent partially and, just trying to stay above water.
It comes on an electronic benefit transfer card, or EBT. But in October, she went to use it, and there was a problem.
October 1st, my benefits landed on my EBT card. And by 8:05 a.m., they were taken off by somebody who either had a duplicate card, my PIN number. It was everything I've depended on. I didn't have any money at the time.
She couldn't believe this happened.
Like somebody being able to skim and scam welfare benefits, I've never heard of that before.
She filed a police report and a claim with the county, but it was denied, saying it was her card that was used. So she filed an appeal. By this time, it was weeks later with no answers and no money. Fortunately, Turner reached out to Melissa Hernandez, a friend who runs a women's advocacy nonprofit, who immediately jumped into action. Hernandez soon uncovered this was not the only case. San Diego County says this is being done by an organized crime ring. The state of California has issued a warning saying theft is up 4,000% with EBT cards. The main way criminals are draining funds is by using skimming devices on top of ATM and point-of-sale devices to clone the cards. So far, thousands of San Diegans have been victims of this crime. Hernandez says she contacted Supervisor Nora Vargas and had a meeting.
And in 24 hours, majority, I want to say about out of 23 women, I want to say about 15 of them got their money back.
Among them, Turner, but she fell too far behind on her bills because of the wait.
Now, my rent, they're not accepting my rent, 3-day notice, unlawful detainer. That's what I'm out doing now. I'm looking for a place to stay.
Turner says while it's tough for her to speak out, she did it to help mothers in her situation who are too embarrassed to ask for help, who think they may have done something wrong.
You feel like that you're the one doing it. You feel like a victim, like you're being victimized twice.
Meanwhile, Vargas says she, her staff, and the county will continue to expedite help for Turner and the rest of the victims. They also say one way to prevent this from happening is changing your password on your cash account once a month. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
And a warning tonight from San Diego Gas and Electric. The utility company is urging its customers to be vigilant against scammers. According to SDG&E, the scammers may threaten to disconnect service in a ruse for money. Victims may receive a call from someone posing as an employee who tells them their account is in delinquency and that a technician will shut off their power if they do not pay immediately. SDG&E says it will never call to demand immediate payment over the phone. Customers can also check their payment history online at SDG&E.com or by calling customer service at 1-800-411-7343. A combination of RSV and the flu has claimed the life of a young child here in California. And RSV isn't just a major concern for children anymore. Hospitalizations are up among seniors. Isabel Rosales has the latest.
She was gray and limp. She wouldn't react to you touching her.
As an infant recovers from RSV and children across the nation battle the surge in respiratory illnesses, parents are suffering alongside them.
They tried to intubate her 7 times. And then they had to do CPR for 4.5 minutes because they lost her heartbeat.
In California, the state's health department reporting the first death of this winter season. A child under the age of 5 has died from RSV and the flu. The health department saying in a statement, this tragic event serves as a stark reminder that respiratory viruses can be deadly, especially in very young children and infants. We're entering a busy winter virus season with RSV, flu, and COVID-19 spreading, and urge parents and guardians to vaccinate their children as soon as possible against flu and COVID-19. In Washington state, emergency departments are in crisis mode.
We are bordering, if not already in disaster mode in our emergency departments across the state.
Many are exceeding 100% of their available capacity, and this is especially true for pediatric emergency departments.
The overwhelming impact on the nation's healthcare system is expanding past children. The CDC is reporting seniors are now 10 times more likely to be hospitalized with RSV than is typical for this time of year. In Washington, Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky presented a proposal for peace at the G20 summit today, offering a pathway to ending the Russian invasion. His proposal came as Russia launched new rounds of missile strikes across the country, primarily targeting energy infrastructure. Chris Wynn is in Washington with the latest.
As air raid sirens ring across Ukraine, there are reports that 2 missiles or rockets struck Poland near the Ukrainian border, killing at least 2 people. It's unclear from where the projectiles originated, but they landed at roughly the same time as a Russian missile strike on western Ukraine. The incident occurring after Ukrainians were warned to expect more attacks from Russia.
Mostly on energy infrastructure. We can see what the enemy wants. They will not succeed.
Russian missiles struck about a dozen Ukrainian cities and districts on Tuesday, marking the largest wave of attacks on the country this month following several devastating rounds in October. Senior Ukrainian officials say at least half of the customers in Kyiv have no electricity after Russian strikes forced emergency outages. The attacks come after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky presented a 10-point peace plan to end Russia's invasion in a video speech to G20 leaders.
We will not allow Russia to wait it out, build up its forces, and then start a new series of terror and global destabilization.
The steps include a path to nuclear safety, food security, and a special tribunal for alleged Russian war crimes.
I am convinced now is the time when the Russian destructive war must and can be stopped.
A Kremlin spokesperson says Russia has seen Zelensky's proposal, but doesn't believe the Ukrainian government wants to negotiate in good faith. Chris Wynn, KPBS News.
The uncertainty hanging over California's solar marketplace is beginning to clear now that regulators have unveiled their plan to reshape solar rules. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says regulators are hearing from the affected parties tomorrow, the last chance for public input before the commission votes next month.
Belinda Martinez moved into one of Oceanside's older neighborhoods in 2003 after finding a Spanish colonial cottage on a rare, oversized lot.
We fell in love with the neighborhood, our neighbors, just sweetheart neighbors.
Martinez added 13 solar panels just over 5 years ago. The solar array is located on the home's flat roof, keeping it mostly hidden from the street. But the impact is very visible on the Martinez's electricity bill.
We've only seen credit on our utility, so basically we have no electrical bill.
That bill credit comes from California's net energy metering regulations. Initially, utilities had to pay homeowners the retail rate for electricity generated by rooftop solar. The system was adjusted in 2017. Solar owners had to enroll in time-of-use rate plans, and utilities paid a few pennies less for a kilowatt-hour of electricity they bought from solar owners than what they could sell to other customers.
You know, we're putting out energy to them. They pay a certain fee for that energy output, and we're obviously paying for the energy in the peak period, and it still allows us to have credit.
But changes proposed last December would have upended that system. A utility-backed plan slashed the value of rooftop-generated electricity by 80%, and the plan had steep mandatory grid access fees. The outcry was immediate. After a few weeks of blistering public dissent, regulators put that plan on hold. Solar advocates cheered the delay, but it was not time to ring the victory bell.
We knew that just because the CPUC paused didn't mean that they were convinced that they were wrong. And one. Number two, the governor did say that changes needed to be made, but he didn't say what those changes ought to be. Well, that's a pretty wide spread.
Solar supporters spent this year shining a light on the threat posed by the December proposal. Protesters rallied at utility offices around the state, including San Diego-based Sempra Energy's headquarters in July.
Please reverse course on your attack campaign on rooftop solar.
A Sacramento rally in October appealed to Governor Gavin Newsom, asking him to protect the solar industry's 67,000 jobs. Rosenfeld says advocates lobbied lawmakers, and for months they flooded CPUC meetings with public comment.
And it's very rare for the regular public to interact directly with the CPUC. And, you know, for most of the time that this campaign has been going on, too, we've been in a COVID type of environment where the CPUC wasn't even meeting in person. So it wasn't until the spring that there was even an in-person meeting where the CPUC would be in a position to look the public in the eye and and hear from members of the public.
Economics are at the heart of the solar issue. Advocates want to make sure homeowners see financial benefits for their solar arrays.
If you put a $25,000 into a solar system, how many years does it take for that upfront investment to pay for itself in savings, in utility bill savings?
Remove the financial incentive, supporters say, and solar installations grind to a halt. But the state's investor-owned utilities say grid expenses are being shifted to non-solar customers.
We want the CPUC to reform the net energy metering program to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share.
The new proposed rules didn't please either side. The onerous grid connection fee is gone, but the value of electricity generated by rooftop solar is being slashed. Pro-utility groups say non-solar customers still pay an unfair share of baked-in grid costs. Solar industry backers say removing financial incentives will slow solar adoption, which is bad for the state's climate goals. Regulators could tweak the plan based on the Wednesday hearing, and they remain poised to make a final decision in mid-December. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Inflation and high gas prices do not appear to be hurting demand for travel this Thanksgiving. AAA is predicting 54.6 million people will travel over the holiday. That is up slightly from last year and nearly as high as pre-pandemic levels. AAA says that's in part because Americans are more comfortable taking public transportation again, including airplanes and trains. Over-tourism is a problem in Lake Tahoe. The popular getaway saw a surge in visitors during the pandemic. Now Photo's travel guide is adding Tahoe to its no list for 2023. Those who work in the area say there needs to be a balance between visitors and the strain that they put on local resources.
You'll have locals that don't want any tourism, right? But how do you live in a tourist town without that income? It's impossible.
We would never say not come. We want everybody to experience Lake Tahoe, but do it in a way that protects it now and in the future.
The locals say travel patterns around Lake Tahoe are mostly back to pre-pandemic levels. Mendocino in Northern California is also Fodor's no list for 2023 due to over-tourism.
The big story as we go throughout to the evening, the overnight into Wednesday will be the wind.
And this is going to be a big driving factor to the potential here for some big impacts, especially if your travels take you north or east into some of the interior valleys and into the mountains. We'll also notice some warmer temperatures for the coast and valley going into Wednesday and Thursday. More dry conditions. Could see another round of wind late this week into this upcoming weekend. But speaking of dry, I mean, you look at the satellite and you see a lack of cloud cover all throughout the southwest. High pressure's in control, and we're looking at the wind traversing the mountainous terrain, downsloping, so the wind is, again, sinking over the higher terrain. That compresses the air, warms up, and you're also looking at some low humidity. And the reason why we're not looking at clouds for tonight around Oceanside, San Diego, or Chula Vista. Those winds will be increasing this evening, going through tonight and right into Wednesday. In fact, peaking here Wednesday morning, where you see some of those high wind warnings out east of Oceanside, San Diego, Chula Vista, over some of the interior valleys and into the mountainous terrain. You get into the mountains here, some of the higher terrain, you could see winds topping 50 or even 60 miles per hour, perhaps even 70 miles per hour with that wind direction out of the north and the east. So if your travels do take you north, say you're going east to west, that can also make it difficult and dangerous with regards to crosswinds. There will be some gusty breezes, though, even all the way out to the coast as we go into Wednesday afternoon. Not as strong as the winds we'll see over the mountains, but that will also allow us to warm up above normal as we talk about the mid-70s around Oceanside. In fact, a warmer day in Oceanside than it will be in Borrego Springs. 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be the case. All right, let's talk about a bit of a cool down later on Friday. Could see, again, a little bit more wind as we work our way toward the upcoming weekend here, too. We're watching that very closely. Look at the warmth over the interior. There's your wind on Wednesday. Wind backs off on Thursday. Could see another round of wind heading in toward the weekend. Over the mountains, notice a little bit of a cool down heading in toward the weekend. Those very gusty winds on Wednesday. And over the deserts, we're going to be staying put into the low and the mid-70s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
While election results have real-life consequences, they also provide lessons for the next generation of voters. KPBS education reporter MG Perez takes us to a classroom for reaction from some high school seniors.
Class is in session.
Sort of a big philosophical question. Do you think politicians should represent the will of people, even the ones that don't vote, or just the people that vote?
Albert Contreras is a government and economics teacher here at the High-Tech High School in North County in San Marcos. He has offered his class of seniors an opportunity for a true reality check.
Now, the control of the House is too early to call, and it's going to be very close. I always want to be challenging my students, but I also want to validate them. So even though they may have differing opinions from their neighbors or even maybe differing opinions at home, I want to arm them with the truth and through facts and figures and hopefully challenge them on those preconceived notions. I don't know what that one's trying to say.
Cullen Hoyer turned 18 in September. He voted for the first time this election day.
I was excited to vote and to do all this research and to learn about the candidates and different propositions. I was a little worried about some of the outcomes.
District 49, which is where a majority of them live.
Many of these students live in the North County Congressional District, where votes are still being counted, which encourages them even more to get involved.
It's one vote in a ton of votes, and if my vote can help at all to help things get better, I think that's important.
I'm proud to be an American because I'm proud to challenge everything that is America, and really understanding that you know, we have a lot of things that we have to you know, solve.
High-Tech High is known for its project-based learning. And in December, the senior project will be more on the midterm elections. Students will release their results of their own ballots taken in November. That means the 95-member senior class will be joined by freshmen, sophomores, and juniors who voted on California propositions in their classroom. It won't change the outcomes officially, but it does count toward the future.
While some of them may not vote, I know that they want to make a difference in their communities. So I have great hope for the future.
Class dismissed. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And And we are covering all the major local and state races on our website, kpbs.org. You can find the latest election results as well as our reporting. Just click on the KPBS Voter Hub on our homepage. And here's another look at today's top stories. San Diego County Sheriff-elect Kelly Martinez hasn't been sworn in yet, but she's already appointing new senior-level staff. This follows the concession of her opponent, John Hemmerling, last night. Martinez will face major challenges once she takes office, including changing the way the Sheriff's Department runs county jails. There are more in-custody deaths in San Diego County jails than any other county in California. And the researcher and student assistant strike at University of California campuses entered a second day. They are demanding better wages and working conditions. Negotiations are continuing, but the UC system is floating the idea of mediation. Union leaders are opposed to that idea, saying that they want to continue to bargain in good faith.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a party vote gives Republican Kevin McCarthy the inside track to becoming the next Speaker of the House. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Former President Donald Trump says he's on the verge of a big announcement. NPR's Morning Edition will have the latest on a potential White House run. And with Thanksgiving just a week away, KPBS Midday Edition will bring us an update on the local COVID-19 situation in San Diego. And as always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by rise.How family of companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOW or visit billhow.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.